Welcome back to COCO Gossip. What you are about to hear is a story pieced together from insider reports, whispers from sources close to the family, and our own exclusive analysis of legal theories surrounding the implosion of the Brown family. Before we crack open the file on what we're calling the Brown family versus Kody Brown, do us a favor. If you believe that the truth always comes to light, hit that like button. If you're ready to hear what really happened away from the TLC cameras, press subscribe and ring that notification bell so you don't miss a single explosive update from COCO Gossip. All right, let's get into it. Our story begins not in a television studio, but in the sterile, unforgiving environment of a legal deposition. While the public was watching Christine pack her boxes and leave for Utah, a much quieter, far more brutal war was allegedly being waged. Our sources, who must remain anonymous to protect their identity, suggest that Christine's departure wasn't just a spiritual divorce. It was the prelude to a legal battle for financial and emotional restitution. A civil suit so damaging, Kody and Robyn pulled every string possible to keep it under wraps. The official narrative, Christine left. The end. But our insiders paint a different picture. They allege that for months following her departure, Christine's request for her share of the family's assets, specifically her portion of the Coyote Pass property and the capital she invested into the family pot for over 2 decades, were met with silence, then stonewalling, then outright refusal. The family pot, once the financial lifeblood of the entire polygamous unit, had allegedly been systematically drained, redirected, and consolidated under the control of Kody and his fourth and only legal wife, Robyn. Christine, we're told, was left with a choice: walk away with nothing but her broken heart, or fight. For herself and for the children who felt abandoned alongside her, she chose to fight. The lawsuit, according to these reports, was devastating. It didn't just demand money, it claimed a pattern of deliberate financial starvation and emotional abuse, not just towards Christine, but towards all the children not born of Robyn. To prove this pattern, her legal team needed more than just her own account. They needed witnesses who had a front row seat to the decay. They needed the children. And the first one to answer the call, the one whose testimony would allegedly become the cornerstone of the case, was Gwendlyn Brown. Imagine the scene. A small private arbitration room, no cameras, no audience, just Kody, Robyn, Christine, their respective lawyers, and an arbitrator. Gwendlyn, now a married woman, a strong, outspoken adult, walks in. She doesn't look at her father. According to a source who claims to have reviewed a transcript of the deposition, her focus was entirely on Christine's lawyer. The lawyer began simply, "Please state your name for the record." Gwendlyn Queiroz, formerly Gwendlyn Brown. "And how do you know the respondent, Mr. Kody Brown?" There was a pause. The air in the room was thick with tension. Gwendlyn allegedly looked up, her gaze finally sweeping past her father, and said, clearly and without hesitation, "He's my biological father." The choice of words was deliberate, clinical, distant, not, "He's my dad," and not, "He's my father." Biological father. It was the first shot fired, and we're told Kody visibly flinched. The lawyer then moved to the heart of the matter, asking Gwendlyn to describe her childhood, specifically the family dynamic after Robyn Sullivan entered their lives. And this, viewers, is where the facade of the happy-go-lucky Brown clan was utterly shattered. Gwendlyn's testimony, according to our sources, painted a devastating picture of 2 entirely separate and unequal families living under the guise of one. First, there was what we'll call the Kingdom of Robyn. Gwendlyn allegedly testified that from the moment Robyn joined the family, a new hierarchy was established. Resources, both emotional and financial, began flowing in one direction. She described a world where Kody was a constant presence. He was there for Robyn's children, Dayton, Aurora, and Brianna. He was there for their school events, their hobbies, their heartbreaks. He legally adopted them, giving them his name and, more importantly, his time. Christine's lawyer, according to the alleged transcript, pressed for specifics. "Can you provide an example of this disparity?" Gwendlyn reportedly didn't even need to think. She brought up Christmas. For years, the family had a tradition of coming together on Christmas morning, but as time went on, that changed. "Christmas morning became Kody's time with Robyn's kids," Gwendlyn allegedly stated. "He would come to our house, my mom's house, in the afternoon, for an hour, maybe 2. He'd drop off presents and then leave. We got the leftovers of his time. We had an appointment on his schedule. For them, he was just dad at home on Christmas morning. She spoke of the financial differences, how Robyn's children always seemed to have the latest phones, new cars when they came of age, and their college tuitions planned for. Meanwhile, she and her siblings often felt like they were on a shoestring budget. She testified that her mother, Christine, became the sole provider for her own household, not just emotionally but financially. Christine was the one hustling her online business, trying to make ends meet, while the supposed family pot seemed to be exclusively funding the lifestyle in the big house on the hill. This wasn't just a feeling, it was a tangible reality. The lawyer then asked Gwendlyn about a particularly painful memory, one that the world saw a sanitized version of on TLC, her sister Isabel's back surgery. Did your father, Kody Brown, travel with you and your sister for her major spinal surgery in New Jersey? The lawyer asked. No, Gwendlyn replied, her voice reportedly cracking for the first time. Why not? He said it was because of COVID-19. He couldn't risk exposure and being away from the rest of the family. And who, the lawyer pressed, was the rest of the family he was concerned about? Gwendlyn's answer, according to our source, was chilling. Robyn and her children, he called them the tender-aged children. He said he couldn't be away from them for that long. My sister, his daughter, was having her spine fused together, and he couldn't be away from his preferred family. The testimony, we're told, was brutal. She described a life of feeling like a second-class citizen in her own family. She spoke of Kody's visits feeling like a chore for him. He would come over, sit on his phone, and barely engage. The vibrant, loving father she remembered from her childhood in Utah had become a stranger, a landlord who would occasionally check in on his tenants. The family culture, she testified, died. It was replaced by Robyn's family culture, and the rest of them were just distant relatives they were obligated to see on holidays. Emotion is powerful, but in a civil suit, emotion must be backed by evidence. The next phase of Gwendlyn's alleged deposition was a deep dive into the transaction that many believe was the final nail in the family's coffin, the Coyote Pass land deal. On the show, it was presented as a dream, a place where they would all build homes together, finally living as one big happy family on their own slice of heaven. But Gwendlyn's testimony, coupled with what our sources claim were financial documents presented by Christine's team, revealed a much more sinister reality. It wasn't a dream, it was a real estate scheme. Christine's lawyer allegedly produced the deeds to the Coyote Pass property, and they confirmed what fans have long theorized. The land wasn't divided equally. Kody and Robyn were joint owners on the largest, most valuable parcel. Lot 1, the one with the coveted pond, or what they called the cesspool, depending on who you ask. Christine was given a lot, yes, but her name was on it alone, Janelle was on hers alone, Mary's on hers alone. The lawyer asked Gwendlyn, "What was your understanding of how this property would be owned?" "We were always told everything was ours," she allegedly testified, "that everything went into one family pot and was shared. We were one family, but when we saw the papers for Coyote Pass, it became clear there was Kody and Robyn's family, and then there was everyone else. Legally separate, financially separate." Exclusive theory. Our legal analyst suggests this was a deliberate strategy. By keeping the other wives on separate individual deeds, Kody and Robyn could legally insulate their own assets. If a wife left, she could only lay claim to her specific, less valuable parcel of undeveloped land, while the primary asset, the combined Lot 1, remained securely in the hands of the legal marriage. It was a preemptive financial divorce, planned years in advance. Gwendlyn's testimony gave this theory a human element. She spoke about the family meetings, where her mother, Christine, would voice her concerns. Christine wanted to build. She was desperate for the family to put down roots, to fulfill the promise of Coyote Pass. "How did your father respond to your mother's desire to start building?" the lawyer asked. "He shut it down," Gwendlyn said flatly. "He always had an excuse. The money wasn't right. The city permits were an issue. The infrastructure costs were too high. But the biggest excuse was that the family wasn't unified enough to build." "And what did he mean by that?" He meant that until everyone was happy with Robyn, until everyone fell in line with his vision of the family, which was a vision centered around Robyn, nothing would move forward. Coyote Pass wasn't a home. It was leverage. It was a hostage. He was holding our future, my mother's future, hostage until she would just submit. But the most damning financial allegation was yet to come. Christine's lawyer then brought up the purchase of Robyn's nearly $1 million home in Flagstaff. The lawyer asked Gwendlyn, "Do you know where the down payment for that home came from?" Gwendlyn paused. "My mom and Mary were told it came from the family's savings, from the profits of selling our Las Vegas homes." And did your mother, Christine, receive a similar amount to purchase her own home?" "No, not even close. My mom had to scrimp and save. She sold things online. She worked constantly. She was eventually able to buy a house, a much smaller one. There was no family pot helping her. The family pot had already been emptied for Robyn." This testimony, if true, is the smoking gun. It transforms Kody from a bumbling, overwhelmed patriarch into something far more calculating. It suggests a deliberate, long-term strategy to divest the original wives of their financial stake in the family, concentrating all the wealth and power within his legal marriage to Robyn. Christine wasn't just leaving a loveless marriage, she was allegedly escaping a financial trap that had been decades in the making. The financial aspect was cold, hard, and calculating. But the final part of Gwendlyn's reported testimony was about the human cost, the emotional damage inflicted not just on her mother, but on an entire generation of Brown children. The lawyer gently guided her back to her childhood, to the secrets. The biggest one of all, she testified, was the nature of Kody's courtship with Robyn. "We were told he was just courting her," Gwendlyn allegedly stated. "But it was different. When he courted my mom or Janelle or Mary, it was a family affair. We were all involved. With Robyn, it was a secret. He was gone for days at a time. He was living a separate life with her and her children before she was even part of the family. He broke the rules for her, the rules he so rigidly enforced on everyone else." She testified that this created a wound of mistrust that never healed. The family was built on a foundation of faith and transparency. But Kody's actions introduced deceit. The children weren't stupid, they could feel the shift. They could feel the lies. "It felt," Gwendlyn said, her voice heavy with the weight of years of pain, "like we were the first family, the original family, and he was cheating on us." This emotional neglect, she argued, was even more painful than the financial disparity. It was the feeling of being erased. She talked about the move from Las Vegas to Flagstaff, a decision she claims was made unilaterally by Kody to please Robyn, who wanted to be near her adult son, Dayton. The other wives and children were just expected to pack up their lives and follow, their own desires and friendships discarded. "My mother was destroyed by that move," Gwendlyn reportedly testified, her anger finally flaring. "She had a life in Vegas. We all did. She had her sister wives, her community. Flagstaff isolated her. It was designed to isolate all of them, to make them easier to control, to make Kody and Robyn the center of the universe." She described watching her mother, a woman she'd always known as vibrant, joyful, and strong, shrink into herself. She watched as Kody would gaslight Christine in family meetings, dismissing her valid feelings of being marginalized as simple jealousy or bitterness. "He would tell her she was being dramatic," Gwendlyn said, tears now openly streaming down her face, according to our source. "He would tell her she needed a better attitude. He would tell her to be sweet to the woman who was replacing her in every conceivable way. He didn't just break her heart. He tried to break her spirit. He tried to convince her that her pain was her own fault." The deposition room was reportedly silent, save for the sound of Gwendlyn's quiet sobs. Christine was crying. Even the lawyers, were told, seemed moved. Kody, for his part, was staring at the table, refusing to look at his daughter. Robyn sat ramrod straight, her expression unreadable, a portrait of defiance. Gwendlyn's testimony concluded with a single, devastating summary of her and her siblings' experience. The lawyer asked one final question. "Gwendlyn, if you could describe the Brown family as it exists today, in one sentence, what would you say?" She took a deep breath, wiped her eyes, and looked directly at the arbitrator. "It's not a family. It's a business, a failed business, where the CEOs cashed out and left the original investors with all the debt." Gwendlyn's testimony was complete. A daughter had held her father accountable in a way the cameras never could. She had laid bare the truth of the two families, the financial manipulations, and the deep emotional scars. But this was only the opening salvo. Kody's legal team would have their turn to cross-examine, to try and discredit her, to paint her as a bitter, money-hungry child. And other Brown children were waiting in the wings to tell their own stories. In part 1, we revealed the secret court battle that threatened to expose the Brown family's darkest secrets. We told you about Gwendlyn Brown's bombshell deposition, where she painted a picture of two families, one showered with love and resources, and the others left with the scraps. We exposed the alleged financial conspiracy behind Coyote Pass and the deep emotional toll of Kody's neglect. Now, in the stunning conclusion of our COCO Gossip special report, we uncover what happened next, the cross-examination, the corroborating testimony, and the final verdict that would change the Brown family forever. According to our sources who claim to have knowledge of the proceedings, Kody's lawyer, a man known for his aggressive, no-holds-barred style, stood up. He approached the witness stand not with empathy, but with a predatory calm. His strategy, it seems, was twofold. First, accuse Gwendlyn of hypocrisy, and second, suggest she was being manipulated by her mother. Ms. Queiroz, he allegedly began, deliberately using her new married name to create distance from the Brown identity. You've painted a rather bleak picture of your upbringing, a life of supposed financial hardship and neglect. Is that correct? It's the truth, Gwendlyn reportedly answered, her voice steady. The truth? The lawyer echoed, a hint of sarcasm in his voice. Let's talk about the truth. You grew up on a hit television show, did you not? A show that provided your family with a level of income and public recognition far beyond the average American family. We were children. We didn't have a choice in that, she replied. But you certainly reaped the benefits, didn't you? He pressed. The show paid for the homes you lived in, the food you ate, the trips you took. And today, you yourself have a public platform, a YouTube channel, a Patreon account, where you discuss your family and this very show. You monetize the story you are now claiming was so traumatic. Isn't it true that you are financially benefiting from the very neglect you're describing? This was a low blow, designed to paint Gwendlyn as a grifter, to suggest her pain wasn't real, but was instead a product she was selling to a gullible public. We're told Gwendlyn was momentarily taken aback, but her response was a testament to her strength. My platform, she allegedly said, making air quotes with her fingers, is the only place where I have ever been allowed to have a voice. For years, our story was told for us, edited and packaged by our father and TLC. The fact that I now have to use my own channel to tell the truth and support myself because the family pot you seem so fond of disappeared doesn't change what happened to us. It proves my point. The lawyer, unfazed, moved to his second line of attack. Christine, you're very close with your mother, aren't you? Of course, she's my mother. And she is the plaintiff in this case, suing for a significant sum of money. Have you discussed your testimony with her? I've discussed my life with my mom. This is my life. These are my memories. Or are they her memories? The lawyer shot back. Isn't it possible, Miss Queiroz, that your mother, bitter about the end of her spiritual marriage, has influenced your perception of the past? That she has poisoned you against your own father to strengthen her legal case? This was the classic defense. Pit the child against the mother, portray Christine as a master manipulator and Gwendlyn as her unwitting pawn. But according to our source, this tactic backfired spectacularly. Gwendlyn reportedly leaned forward, her eyes locking with the lawyer's. For 20 years, I watched my mother do everything for this family. She raised 13 of the children, not just her own. She cooked, she cleaned, she homeschooled, she kept the peace. She was the heart of the family, and for 20 years I watched my father slowly disrespect her, dismiss her, and discard her. My mother didn't poison me against him, Kody did. The room was electric. The attempt to discredit Gwendlyn had only allowed her to double down, to deliver an even more impassioned defense of her mother and an indictment of her father. Kody's lawyer had lost control of the narrative, and things were about to get even worse for the Brown patriarch. Christine's legal team wasn't relying solely on Gwendlyn. To prove a pattern of behavior, they needed more voices. And according to a secondary report, The next person to provide a deposition was none other than Paedon Brown. If Gwendlyn's testimony was a sharp surgical incision, Paedon's was a sledgehammer. Our source claims that Paedon's deposition, which was given separately, was filled with raw, unfiltered anger. He allegedly corroborated everything Gwendlyn said about the financial and emotional favoritism towards Robyn and her children, but he added a new, explosive layer. He spoke of the toxic masculinity and the impossible standards Kody set for his sons, while seemingly demanding nothing of his sons with Robyn. He reportedly testified that he and his brothers, particularly Garrison, were treated not as sons but as rivals. A source alleges Paedon testified, "Once we were old enough to have our own opinions, once we weren't little kids who worshipped him, he was done with us, especially if we challenged him. He wants soldiers, not sons. When we started questioning his decisions, especially about the COVID rules that kept him locked in Robyn's castle, he saw it as a betrayal. He told my mom that we weren't respecting him, but respect is earned, not demanded." Paedon's alleged testimony provided a crucial male perspective. It showed that the neglect wasn't just limited to Christine's children, but was felt by Janelle's as well. He and Garrison were adults, they were out of the house, but the sting of their father's abandonment was still fresh. He spoke of the pain of Kody not having a functional relationship with any of his adult sons, save for those who came with Robyn. This corroboration was critical. It was no longer just Gwendlyn's word against Kody's. It was a chorus of his own children from different mothers, all singing the same sad song of neglect. The case was no longer about a bitter wife, it was about a failed father. After weeks of depositions, presentation of financial documents, and emotional testimony, the arbitrator was ready to make a decision. There was no public trial, no jury. This was a private civil matter, and the ruling would be binding. Our sources, who have been remarkably consistent, claim the verdict was a stunning victory for Christine and a complete repudiation of Kody Brown's authority and character. First, the financial settlement. The arbitrator, we're told, rejected Kody and Robyn's claim that the family pot was a loose, informal arrangement with no legal standing. The ruling allegedly cited Kody's own words from years of television footage, where he repeatedly described their finances as one family, all for one, and pooled resources. The arbitrator ruled that Christine had acted in good faith as a financial partner in the family for over 25 years. She was awarded not just the full equity from the sale of her home in Flagstaff, but an additional significant sum for her stake in the Coyote Pass property, forcing Kody and Robyn to buy her out at fair market value. But the most shocking part of the ruling wasn't about money, it was about the children. While Christine had primary physical custody of their minor daughter, Truly, Kody was petitioning for standard unsupervised visitation rights. This is where the testimony of the adult children had its most profound impact. The arbitrator's decision, according to a source who claims to have seen a summary of the ruling, contained scathing language. It reportedly cited a demonstrable pattern of emotional neglect towards his children from prior marriages, and a troubling tendency to prioritize the needs of one household to the detriment of the others. The testimony from Gwendlyn and Paedon, specifically regarding Kody's absence during crucial moments like Isabel's surgery and his estrangement from his adult sons, was allegedly mentioned as key evidence. The arbitrator ruled that unsupervised visitation was not in the child's best interest at this time. Kody Brown, the patriarch of 18, was reportedly granted only professionally supervised visitation with his youngest daughter, Truly. Exclusive analysis. This type of ruling is incredibly rare in family court, especially when there are no allegations of physical abuse or substance abuse. To award supervised visitation based on emotional neglect is a massive legal statement. It means the court officially recognized that Kody's behavior, his favoritism, his absence, his dismissiveness, was actively harmful to the emotional well-being of a child. The children's testimony didn't just win their mother money, it protected their little sister. And so, the war that was fought in secret came to an end. Christine walked away not as a victim, but as a victor, financially secure and, more importantly, vindicated. The image that Kody Brown had spent a lifetime crafting, that of a wise, loving, and commanding patriarch, was shattered not by a TV network or by public opinion, but by the quiet, powerful voices of his own children. They spoke their truth, not for fame, not for money, but for a mother who had been silenced for too long. Gwendlyn's testimony, supported by her siblings, became the stone that brought the giant down. It proved that the cost of neglect is always eventually paid. The Brown family, as the world knew it, is over. What remains is a cautionary tale, a story of a man who had a kingdom but lost it by hoarding his treasures, his time, his affection, his resources, in one single room, leaving the rest of his castle to fall into ruin. The children have spoken, and their testimony is the legacy that Kody Brown never wanted, but the one he has truly earned. What do you think about these explosive reports? Do you believe the children's testimony was the key to Christine's victory? Let us know your theories in the comments below. And don't forget to like and subscribe to COCO Gossip, where we'll always dig for the truth the cameras won't show you. We'll see you next time.